Aloha, and welcome to another teaching tip from BYU Hawaii's Edward D. Smith Center for Learning and Teaching. In today's tip, I'm going to describe to you one change from many that I have made in my own teaching since joining the Center for Learning and Teaching over 3 years ago. I'm going to tell you about that change that I made, and then I'm going to tell you a little story about it, and then I'm going to tell you where you can get more information in this tip today. So the change is to add learning goals to everything, to every assignment, to every class session, to every test, to everything that students do. What a learning goal is a simple statement. It's one sentence or even a phrase that describes very specifically what students are supposed to learn from whatever activity they're engaged in. It's not much more complex than that. Let me give you a few examples of these statements. And these are not perfect, okay? But there's some examples to give you some ideas. So this is from one of my online classes here. So learning goals, right up at the front. Understand the definitions of a learning city, a health city, green city. Okay, so they're trying to read in order to understand the definitions. And then the second goal is to judge the extent to which their city is a learning city, health city, green city. Okay, so that's what they're supposed to learn from this task, okay, to be able to do that. Here's another example. This is from a discussion board that I have in one of my classes, and learning goals are posted right up front. Use noun clauses to make predictions. Use the correct word order in question, word, and if, whether, noun clauses. Okay, so there are these statements, right, that tell students what they're going to do and enjoy interacting with your classmates, right? Because our goal was to interact with each other because it was completely online during spring semester, and I wanted students to build relationships with each other. So there's another example, and you'll notice these words here: use, enjoy. These verbs that come right at the beginning are essential, right? And here's another example: apply. So you have to apply what you've learned from our class. And this is for a test that I gave in spring semester. I wanted them to know that the goal wasn't just to answer these extended questions from their own experience with learning language. I wanted them to actually demonstrate to me through their answers that they had learned something in our class. So apply what they knew. And then two, to be tactful within their responses that they were writing. And that was part of the test. So a learning goal is just a simple statement that tells students exactly what they're supposed to learn, the process that they're supposed to go through as they're learning. Now, here's why this is important. So that's what you do. You write, but why should I do that? Why is that important? Well, it's important for a couple reasons. Number one, it forces me as the teacher to think more deeply about what is it exactly I want my students to do. So I love to think of activities. I love to think ideas. I like to talk about the stuff in my field. Like, it just energizes me, right? But it forces me to think from the student's perspective, because our end goal as teachers is learning, right? The goal is not to teach. The goal is to help students learn. And it forces me to remember that and think about that. What is it that the students are actually going to learn from this activity? So that's one reason to do it. Another reason to do it is, so when you create a learning goal, you actually tell the students. I write it on the board. I write it when I go to class. I write it on the board. When I do it online, it's in every assignment, like you can see in these examples here. It's in every single assignment. So I tell the students. And the reason I tell the students is it holds me accountable, because they know that that's what they're supposed to get from whatever they're doing. And if they don't get that, then I've actually had students ask me, they say, Brother Wolf, we didn't do that. And then I have to respond and say, yeah, we didn't do that. We're going to, if it's a class, we'll say we'll do that in another class. Or no, we didn't have enough time for that. We're not going to get to that. So don't worry about that. But they hold me accountable and they ask me about it. And the converse of that is actually true. So when students start to veer off of the topic and they start to ask questions that take us in other directions, I'm actually able to tell them, hey, hold on a second. Here are our learning goals. Let's not veer away from those. Let's stick right to our learning goals that we have for today. So it works both ways, that the students are able to hold me accountable, and I'm able to keep the students on track. And it's interesting because it helps the students to feel like that. I think it's helped my students to feel like the tasks I ask them to do are less busy work, because they know why they're doing something. So those are some reasons why creating learning goals for every task is important. Now, here's my story that I'm going to tell you. So we talked about this concept in our first semester of the colloquium on teaching that we did at the Center for Learning and Teaching. And I'd always thought about activity lists, and I've created goals in my mind, but I've never articulated those to the students exactly. But so we talked about that, and I'd never done it. And I thought, okay, well, I'll try it. But I wasn't sold on it. I really wasn't. And it probably took me about 2 months of trying this and working on it before I became totally sold. And I'll tell you what, right now, anybody would be hard pressed to change my mind from my teaching about not doing this, because, wow, it has changed the way I think. It has forced me to think more deeply about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And it's forced me to think from the student's perspective about what they're learning. And it's forced me to connect every class to our course goal, because if those daily learning goals for each activity aren't connected to the course objectives that we're doing, then I start to question, well, why are we doing that? And is that really important? Is that something I want my students to spend time on? So it's forced me into this really deep level of thinking about my teaching and my students' learning. So back to my story, it took me about 2 months in the colloquium from working on it and trying it and testing it and building my skills with it. But I finally got to the point where I'm totally sold. But it didn't come easy, and it takes quite a bit of work to be able to do this. So my challenge to you is to try it. If you haven't thought about articulating clear learning goals for your students, for your activities, for your assignments, try it. For fall semester, do it. Add it to at least 1 or 2 assignments and go from there and see how many you can add to it. So if you want more information about this, there's a couple ways you can get it. Okay, I'm going to come down here. So how can you get more information about learning goals? 1, register for our pre-fall workshops. We're doing them from August 5th to 25th. Go to this website, clt.byuh.edu/workshops. Go there, and it's got the complete list of workshops. There's one workshop that's specific where you'll talk about this concept, but every workshop is going to have learning goals in them. So, and all of our facilitators know about this idea and have tried it. So go and ask questions. You can pick any workshop to find out more information about this idea. Number 2, request a one-on-one consultation with the Center for Learning and Teaching. Anybody at the center can help you with this. We'll talk about it. Just call, not call, but email Ari Sorensen. Her email is listed right here. Okay, ari.sorensen@byuh.edu, and she can set you up with an appointment with anybody from the Center for Learning and Teaching, and we'll talk to you about the idea. Third thing you can do is ask the CLT, email Ari Sorensen, and she will send you a book, Teach Like the Champion 2.0. This is one of the books we use in our colloquium on teaching. Chapter 4 talks about this exact idea, okay? And interestingly, when I first encountered it, my first semester, we weren't using this book. I encountered it in something totally different, but then we started using this book, and wow, I was like, here you go. This guy's talking about the same thing again. And it reconfirmed in my own mind and my own teaching beliefs that, yeah, this is the right thing for me and my students. So if you want more information, ask for that book. We'll send you a free copy. A couple reminders right on the end here really quick. Okay, so we're doing these workshops August 5th to 25th. They're short. They're on Zoom. They're 30 minutes because we're still kind of in summer mode, right? So they're quick and they're highly targeted and they're small groups. As many people as register, we're going to break up into small sections. So we've got plenty of facilitators, plenty of ideas. So we're going to keep the group small, but so you can ask questions and high interaction within the Zoom groups. And the second thing you can do is come to the CLT. We're just outside the library entrance there from 10 to 1 o'clock. Stop by anytime on August 4th and 5th. And we've got free books for you. There's one book that we're doing. It's small. There's 2 books. One, I can't remember the titles right off the top of my head, but there's one book that's a really short book that gives you highly targeted strategies for teaching online, things that you can apply immediately. Open the book, read a paragraph, bam, you can apply it to your teaching. And then there's another book that applies a bit more deeper theory to the teachings, to online teaching. But come pick up the book. There you go, August 4th and 5th. So that's my teaching idea. My challenge to you is to learning goals. Think about those. Like for everything you do, what do you want students to do, and try and articulate it. It is not easy. And as you can see from my examples, I'm not perfect with it either, but man, I love it. It has forced me into this deeper level of teaching. All right, there you go. Aloha and happy teaching.